The slap came fast, sharp, and public. A flight attendant leaned in, her voice dripping with anger. And when the black woman tried to defend herself, the crack of palm against cheek silenced the cabin. Gasps filled the aisle. Some passengers turned away, pretending not to see. Others whispered. No one stood up. The woman's hand went to her face, but she didn't lower her eyes. What the crew and the passengers didn't know was that she wasn't just another traveler squeezed into a seat. She was the billionaire who owned the very plane they were flying on. And with that single strike, the rules of power were about to flip. How many times has this story played out before? How many women, especially women of color, have been shamed, silenced, or shoved aside in spaces where dignity should be a given? Tonight, the silence broke. Where are you listening from right now? Drop it in the comments below. I want to know. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss these powerful stories. Now, let's go back to the beginning of that flight and see exactly how it all unfolded. Ma'am, this section is reserved for first-class passengers only. The flight attendant's voice sliced through the cabin, sharp enough to make heads turn. Phones shifted in hands. A few passengers raised eyebrows. Most lowered their eyes, pretending not to see. She stood tall, uniform crisp, red lipstick unbothered. Her name badge gleamed under the cabin light. Rachel M. In the wide leather seat of 1A, a black woman sat calmly, her silver hair tucked under a silk scarf. She wore a tailored navy dress, pearls at her throat, a leather handbag resting across her lap. At first glance, she looked like someone's grandmother heading to visit family. To Rachel, she looked like a mistake. "Excuse me?" the woman asked softly. "You heard me," Rachel said louder. "This isn't your seat. You'll need to move back. Economy's down the aisle." A man in seat 2C snickered. Someone muttered, "Here we go again." The woman reached into her purse. Her hands were steady. She pulled out a printed boarding pass and placed it on the tray table in front of her. Seat 1A, first class, paid in full. Rachel picked it up between two fingers, like it was contaminated. She scanned it quickly, then thrust it back. "These can be forged. I need to see ID." The woman produced her driver's license without complaint. She had done this 100 times before, but Rachel wasn't satisfied. "Ma'am, people try this all the time. You can't just wander into first class." Phones tilted upward. A young passenger in 3B pressed record on her screen. Her caption whispered out loud as she typed, "They're harassing this woman in 1A." The woman in 1A folded her hands neatly in her lap. Her eyes were clear, voice even. "I have my boarding pass. I have my ID. I am seated where I belong." Rachel's smile was thin, venom hidden under gloss. "You're making a scene, ma'am. Don't embarrass yourself." The words landed heavy. Some passengers coughed to cover discomfort. Others stared openly now, waiting for the explosion. But the woman didn't explode. She breathed in, slow and measured. "Please, check your system again." Rachel leaned closer, invading her space. "Don't tell me how to do my job." Then, without warning, her hand shot out. A sharp, stinging slap across the woman's cheek. The sound cracked through the cabin like a pistol. Gasps erupted. Someone screamed, "What the hell was that?" Phones jerked higher. Every camera caught it. The woman's head tilted from the force. For a moment, silence swallowed the cabin. Even the engines seemed to hold their breath. She straightened her scarf, adjusted her pearls, lifted her chin. Her voice, calm and steady, carried farther than Rachel's shrill bark ever could. "I suggest you reconsider what you've just done." Rachel froze. The passengers didn't. Whispers spread like wildfire. Did she just slap her? On camera, everyone saw it. "Oh, she's done. She's so done." But Rachel doubled down. You were refusing instructions. I was within my rights. Right? The woman's eyebrow arched. You think you had the right to put your hand on me? Security was already being called. Rachel spoke into her radio, hand trembling but voice arrogant. Disruptive passenger in first class. Request immediate removal. Disruptive? Someone from row 4 shouted. Lady, she was sitting there quietly until you lost your mind. The young woman in 3B raised her voice over the murmurs. I've got it all recorded. Every second. She showed her ticket. She showed ID. And you slapped her. Rachel's jaw clenched. Delete that video. Now. Laughter burst out from a man across the aisle. Delete it. Honey, it's already live. The woman in 1A remained still. Her cheek bore a faint red mark, but her dignity was untouched. She opened her bag again. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled out a phone, sleek and expensive, and tapped the screen once. A private message flashed across. The words were short, precise. Emergency. Prepare board meeting now. Passengers around her couldn't help but notice. A woman in 2A whispered, What kind of passenger sends a message like that? The boarding sign above the cabin door blinked red. Flight delayed. Awaiting clearance. 2 security officers appeared at the front of the cabin. One was tall, stocky, with the weary eyes of someone who had broken up too many bar fights. The other younger, nervous, hand already near her radio. What seems to be the problem? The older officer asked. Rachel pointed sharply. This woman refuses to comply with crew instructions. She's in the wrong seat. Aggressive behavior. The cabin erupted. That's a lie. We saw it all. Check her ticket. The officer raised his hand. Enough. Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass? The woman in 1A slid it forward again. The officer studied it, compared it to her ID, then frowned. He looked at Rachel. This says first class, seat 1A. She faked it, Rachel snapped. These people know how to game the system. The cabin went deathly quiet. These people. 2 words that poisoned the air. Every black passenger, every brown passenger, every person who had ever been told they didn't belong, felt the sting. The woman in 1A sat taller now. Her gaze swept the cabin. Every camera was aimed at her. Every eye locked on her next move. She lifted her chin, unhurried. Officer, I am not moving. Rachel sputtered, red blotches rising on her neck. Then she'll be escorted off this flight. But the officer hesitated. She's not breaking any rules. Her documents are valid, Rachel hissed. Don't you see what's happening? She's trying to scam us. No, came a firm voice from the back. A middle-aged black man leaned forward, his phone raised. What we're seeing is you putting hands on a paying passenger because you didn't think she belonged up here. Gasps. Agreement murmurs. That's right. Say it. Unbelievable. The officer's radio crackled. A supervisor's voice. Delay confirmed at gate C23. Situation escalating. Rachel's lip curled. She turned to the woman in 1A. You think you can just sit there and everyone will side with you? The woman smoothed her scarf. I don't think. I know. And as the camera zoomed closer, her phone buzzed again. A new message glowed on the screen. Board assembled. Awaiting your arrival. Passengers whispered. Confused. Board? Arrival? The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. Not anger, not fear, just certainty. She lifted her eyes to Rachel and spoke in a voice meant for the entire cabin. This flight doesn't move without me. The cabin erupted. Phones shot higher. Passengers gasped. Rachel stumbled back a step, suddenly less sure of the ground under her feet. The slap had landed on one woman's cheek, but the blowback was about to strike an entire airline. This flight doesn't move without me. Her words lingered in the pressurized hush, and the hush did strange things. It gathered, heavy as a storm cloud, over the wide leather seats and glossy tray tables. It thinned out the bravado in row 2. It pulled every wandering eye back to 1A. Rachel didn't speak. Her cheeks were flushed, the bright, blotchy red of someone who'd misjudged the room and didn't know how to fix it. She adjusted her scarf, straightened her badge like armor, and said to no one in particular, "Cabin crew, stand by." The command sounded smaller than she wanted it to. The older security officer took a careful step closer. His voice was low, meant for de-escalation. "Ma'am, if you're hurt, we can have a medic meet the plane." "I'm fine," the woman said. She pressed 2 fingers to the warming skin of her cheek, then let her hand fall. "What I need is respect, and for you to record exactly what happened." She said it gently, but it wasn't a request. Phones hovered everywhere now, bright little moons. The young woman in 3B spoke without looking up from her screen. "People are watching. A lot of people." "How many?" someone whispered. "Thousands," she said. "And climbing." A man in 2C leaned into the aisle, eyes narrowed like he was trying to place a face from memory. "She looks familiar," he murmured. "From a magazine, maybe." He didn't commit to it. He didn't want to be wrong. He also didn't want to miss being right. Rachel cleared her throat and tried to reclaim authority. "Ma'am, you were asked to comply, and you refused. If you'll just come with me, we can reseat you." The woman in 1A folded her hands on the armrest. Her nails were neat, buffed to a soft shine. A ring caught the cabin light and sent it skating across her knuckles. "I will remain where my ticket places me," she said. "And I'd like your full name, please." "Excuse me?" "Your name," she repeated. "And the names of the crew working this cabin." She turned to the officers, not looking away from Rachel. "Please write them down. It matters that we get it right." The older officer hesitated, then took out a small notebook anyway. "Rachel?" Rachel stared at him. "You're really doing this?" "I'm doing my job," he said, pen poised. Rachel swallowed. "Rachel Mercer. And the others?" the woman asked, calm as tidewater. A flight attendant near the galley offered her name in a shaky voice. Another followed. Then the younger officer. Then the older one, who added his badge number without being asked. The woman nodded. The tiniest acknowledgement. A record begun. At the front of the cabin, the door to the jet bridge remained open. The air that drifted in smelled like coffee gone cold and floor polish. No one crossed that threshold. No one moved the plane 1 inch. The captain appeared in the doorway to the cockpit, hand braced on the frame. He took in the scene at a glance. The phones, the officers, the red mark on the woman's cheek. His jaw tightened. He had the look of a man who liked problems he could solve with a checklist. This wasn't that. "Status?" he asked. Rachel spoke too quickly. "We have a disruptive passenger refusing crew instructions. She needs to be removed so we can depart." The woman didn't look at the captain right away. She lifted her phone, tapped once, then again. She wasn't scrolling. She was sending. When she did meet his eyes, her voice was almost kind. "Captain, I have complied with every procedure. I have shown my boarding pass. I have shown my identification. I have endured an assault. I will not be moved." The captain's gaze slid to the older officer. "Her documents appear valid," the officer said. "Everything checks out." Someone in row 5 spoke up, steady and tired in a way that felt generational. "You all better do the right thing, because some of us have been watching this our whole lives." Heads turned toward the voice. A woman with silver locks and a church hat tucked carefully on her lap met the younger officer's eyes. "Don't make excuses for what we all saw," she said. "Write it down." The younger officer nodded, like she'd been given an order she was relieved to take. "Yes, ma'am." Rachel's lips pressed thin. "We have policies for a reason," she said, trying to sound unflappable. "We have to verify premium seating, especially when—" "When what?" the woman in 1A asked. Rachel stopped. "When someone looks like me?" the woman said softly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The words traveled the length of the cabin and settled in every lap. Silence. Then a cough, a shifting of feet, the small guilt noises people make when they recognize something and don't want to. The young woman in 3B turned her screen so it faced the aisle for a beat. "They're asking her name," she said. "They're saying they can send legal help. Tell them to keep the footage safe," the woman in 1A replied, still calm. "Tell them to save it somewhere no one else can touch." She didn't use the words app or cloud. She didn't need to. The instructions sat there, plain as good sense. "Copy," 3B said, as if she worked for the woman now. The captain tried again, something like diplomacy in his tone. "Ma'am, if you'd like to step into the jet bridge, we can talk privately." "No," she said. "I prefer sunlight to back rooms. We can speak here, and we can speak clearly." She angled her face to him, letting him see the mark he'd been pretending not to notice. "I will be asking for a medical report," she added, "from your airline physician, not just a bandage and a shrug." He flinched, almost imperceptibly. The older officer's pen scratched across the page. "Request noted," he said. It was the kind of sentence that meant more coming from someone who'd said too many empty ones. A teenage boy in row 4 leaned forward. "Ma'am," he said, hesitant, do you work for the airline?" He winced at his own bravery and at how small the question sounded. The woman's eyes softened. "Today," she said, "I work for everyone on this plane." It wasn't an answer. It was better than an answer. It made the hair lift on people's arms. Her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen, and, in the same steady voice she'd used for everything else, she read it aloud, the way people did before there were screens. "The board is assembled. They're waiting." She looked up and met the captain's eyes again. "Which means we are not." For a heartbeat, the cabin breathed as one. The idea of a board hung there, improbable and undeniable at the same time, like hearing thunder when the weather app still says clear. Rachel laughed then, brittle. "A board? This is performance. This is manipulation. She's making a show of it because she knows we can't depart with the door open and you all are feeding it." She tossed her chin toward the cameras. "That's not power. That's noise." The woman in 1A turned her head, slowly, like a clock hand finding noon. "Noise passes," she said. "Records do not." She opened the leather handbag again and drew out a slim paper notebook, the kind people bring to funerals and court dates. On the first clean page, she wrote a date. She wrote the flight number in careful, round script. She wrote Rachel's name and the word strike, and then she drew a small square and shaded it in like a box checked. The shading sound, pencil on paper, was somehow louder than every chime and announcement that had come before. The captain's radio crackled. A gate supervisor wanted an update. He didn't answer. He was watching the way the woman's hand moved, the way she didn't rush. He knew something about control. He recognized it when someone else had it. "Ma'am," he said, more quietly now, "what is it you want?" "Truth," she said. "Accountability. And since you are asking for logistics, I want this recorded as an incident report. I want the company physician to meet the aircraft. I want a copy of the service policy that justifies touching a seated passenger. Out loud, please, so everyone understands it. And I want an apology." She let the last word sit there. Not a demand. A stone placed where it belonged. Across the aisle, the man who'd been squinting at her finally found his courage. "I know you," he blurted. Then he faltered. I think I do. Weren't you on the cover of—" He stopped himself. remembering the rule his grandmother taught him about not speaking on things you can't back up. She spared him the embarrassment. "People think they know a lot of women like me," she said, almost amused. "They're usually wrong, but occasionally they're very right." A ripple moved down the rows. It felt like air pressure changing before a storm. The older officer tucked his notebook away. "We can't move this plane until we're comfortable. Everyone's safe," he said to the captain. "We're safe," someone said. "We will be," someone else answered, "depending on what happens in the next 5 minutes." Rachel shifted her weight, heels squeaking against the aisle carpet. She looked smaller now. Somehow. Not because the woman in 1A had raised her voice, but because she hadn't. Because she had pulled the curtain back, without tearing it. The captain exhaled through his nose, long and slow. He gave a small nod toward the galley. A flight attendant disappeared, and returned a moment later with a wrapped ice pack. The woman took it, touched it lightly to her cheek, then set it on the armrest as if to say the injury was not the point. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't put it on speaker. She didn't need the theatrics. She simply lifted it to her ear and said, with terrible politeness, "I'm still on the aircraft." "Yes, they're here." "No, not yet." A pause. A listening. "Then put them on hold. I'll be ready in 2 minutes." She hung up, and the cabin heard the soft click like a gavel. Rachel tried for one last foothold. "You can't just..." The woman in 1A turned to her, the same steady patience in her eyes she might have used on a rude child at church. "You put your hand on me," she said. "I have put my hand on the wheel." There is a difference. The captain looked at the officers. The officers looked at the phones. The phones looked back at all of them. Red dots. Unblinking. Somewhere near row 6, the silver-loaked woman folded her hands and bowed her head. "Let the truth be quick," she murmured, just loud enough to bless the air. At the front of the cabin, a chime sounded. The kind of small, polite sound that usually meant coffee refills or a request for more blankets. It landed differently now. It sounded like a curtain lifting. The woman in 1A slid the notebook back into her bag and lifted her phone again. "Connect me," she said, "to no one in particular, and to absolutely everyone. I'm ready to speak." The woman in 1A didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Connect me. I'm ready to speak." Her phone lit again, blue glow soft against her skin. She pressed one button, then another. The cabin speakers didn't carry her voice, but the cabin didn't need them. It was the silence, taut and electric, that did the work. Every passenger leaned in. Every phone lens tilted closer. "Good afternoon," she said into the receiver. Her tone was as even as water poured from a pitcher. "Yes, I'm still on the aircraft. No, we haven't departed. A member of your staff struck me. On camera. Yes, I said, struck." The officer beside her straightened. Rachel shifted her weight from one foot to the other, eyes darting. The woman listened for a moment. Then, quietly, "No, do not postpone. Hold the board in session. Keep the directors in their seats. They'll hear from me directly." Passengers traded looks. Board, directors. The words traveled the aisle like gossip at a family reunion, passed in whispers, growing weightier with each retelling. Rachel laughed nervously, high and tinny. She's bluffing. You don't call a board of directors from an airplane. She's pretending. But the man in 2C was shaking his head, lips moving as if he'd just remembered. "I've seen her before," he whispered. "In Forbes. Or maybe Black Enterprise." Something big. The teenager in row 4 mouthed, "She's somebody." The woman in 1A angled the phone away for a moment. She spoke not just into the receiver, but into the air. "Please understand, I'm not here to argue with gate staff. I am here because this company is about to learn that its culture has consequences." Gasps followed, small, sharp intakes, as though the cabin itself were breathing. She returned to the call. "Yes, patch them through. Speaker." She tapped once. A man's voice filled the narrow space, tinny but unmistakably urgent. Directors present, finance, operations, legal, public relations, all logged in. The passengers jolted, as if a ghost had stepped into the aisle. Rachel froze, her mouth parting, then closing again. Another voice. Female, older, clipped with authority. Status of the incident? The woman in 1A spoke clearly, as if dictating minutes. On board Flight 229, outbound from JFK. First class cabin. Boarding pass and identification presented. Flight attendant denied service, attempted removal, escalated to physical assault. Phones rose higher. Nobody dared cough. Even the captain, still lingering in the cockpit doorway, tilted his head to catch every word. A third voice crackled across. Stock is already down 0.5 point in after hours. Media picking it up. Rachel's knees softened. She gripped the seat back beside her, knuckles white. "This is insane," she whispered. "She can't." But the woman didn't look at her. She looked straight ahead, face calm, voice steady. Record shows this is not the first complaint. Data indicates repeat bias in premium cabins. I warned of this. The Foundation warned of this. Yet here we are, passengers murmured. Foundation. Data. Repeat bias. The words fell like stones into water, ripples spreading. Recommendation? Asked the clipped voice. The woman touched her scarf, smoothed the fold where Rachel's hand had disrupted it. Immediate recognition of the incident as material. Activation of emergency governance clause. And before you ask, yes, I am invoking it. The young woman in 3B nearly dropped her phone. She's not bluffing. She's pulling a trigger only insiders even know about. Rachel's voice cracked. Stop this performance. The woman turned at last. Her eyes met Rachel's without malice, only clarity. Performance is temporary. Protocols are permanent. The board call continued. Voices overlapping now. Lawyers conferring. Directors tallying votes. And then the man's voice again, steady but subdued. Invocation accepted. The emergency governance clause is active. Authority granted. The older officer whispered it aloud, as if to translate. She just got the wheel. And the cabin erupted not in cheers, not yet, but in disbelief, in awe, in the crackling realization that the woman they'd watched be slapped and shamed was not a passenger, begging for dignity. She was the owner tightening her grip on the reins. Rachel took one step back, then another. This can't be real. The woman placed her phone down, screen still glowing, speaker still live. This is very real. And beginning now, we are not discussing whether I belong in this seat. We are discussing how your airline will answer for what happened here. The man in 2C muttered what everyone else was thinking. She owns the damn plane. The camera lights doubled, then tripled. Livestream counters ticked higher, and outside, the departure board flicked from delayed to on hold. For the first time, the airline wasn't in control. She was. The captain stayed in the doorway, one hand on the frame, as if the plane might tilt if he let go. The older security officer tucked his notebook away but kept his place at 1A like a sentry. Rachel hovered 2 rows back, suddenly between worlds, close enough to watch, too far to command. The woman in 1A set her phone on the armrest, speaker still alive with distant voices waiting on her word. She didn't hurry. She adjusted the silk at her throat, touched the edge of the ice pack, then looked at the captain. Captain, she said, plain and courteous, this aircraft is not safe to depart until the harm is acknowledged and the record is preserved. Keep the door open. Request the company physician to meet the jet bridge. Ask your cabin manager and your ground supervisor to come forward. We'll proceed on facts. He hesitated, used to white noise and certainty. Not this. Then he nodded, a single, professional tilt. Understood. Attitudes shift the way light does when a cloud moves. Small at first, then suddenly, everything is different. The younger flight attendant from the galley stepped in with a bottle of water and a real glass. "Ma'am, for your cheek?" she asked. Careful, respectful. "Thank you," the woman said. She took the glass, not as a favor but as a courtesy she allowed someone else to offer. "Place it here." The older officer spoke to his partner. "Separate involved staff," he said. "No more contact." He turned to Rachel. "Ms. Mercer, step back to the galley, please." Rachel's mouth opened, then shut. "Union representation," she clipped out, as if the word were a shield. "You'll have it," the officer said. "But you won't be working this cabin while we sort it." Rachel retreated, heels soundless on the aisle carpet. From row 6, the woman with silver locks folded her hands like church. "Truth's walking up and down this plane right now," she said softly. The sentence landed like a blessing and a warning at once. The board call on the armrest crackled to life. A precise voice, female, older. "We have legal and operations present. We also have communications. We are prepared to receive your directives." The woman in 1A didn't look at the phone. She looked at the captain instead, because that was how hierarchy was supposed to work, in the open. "Captain, confirm. You will log this as an incident, request medical, and secure statements from witnesses." "Yes," he said. He felt it. The strange relief of an order that made sense. She tapped the phone once. "Legal," she said. "Prepare immediate suspension from customer contact for the flight attendant who used force, pending review under standard due process. No scapegoating. No delay. Today." Rachel flinched 2 rows back. "You can't." The woman did not turn. "I am not firing you, Ms. Mercer. I am protecting the public and the record. Due process is not a weapon. It is a door." The older officer wrote that down verbatim, as if it belonged in a manual. "Operations," she continued to the speaker. "Replace the lead attendant for this flight. You have people on reserve. Do not pretend you don't." She waited, listening to the quiet frenzy miles away. "Good. Send them now. Passengers will be updated every 10 minutes, with truth, not guesswork." The young woman in 3B murmured into her phone for her viewers, but her tone had changed. The adrenaline had drained into respect. "She's not yelling," she said. "She's building a staircase and making them climb it." The captain's headset crackled. He listened, eyes steady, then gave a small nod toward the aisle. "The ground supervisor is on the way," he told the woman. "Cabin manager as well." "Thank you," she said. "And Captain, one more thing." She let the pause teach. "Read aloud the policy you are trained under regarding physical contact with a seated passenger." He closed his eyes briefly. "I don't have the text in front of me." "Then say the spirit of it," she replied. "In your own words." He drew a breath. "We are not to lay hands on a passenger unless there is an immediate safety threat that cannot be mitigated another way." "Good," she said. Let it be heard. The words traveled down the cabin and did their work. Faces loosened. Shoulders dropped. Just enough. People believed their own eyes again. The board call continued, quieter now, because everyone was listening. Legal outlining steps, operations reporting crew transfers, communications drafting language that wouldn't dodge the word assault. Finance whispered about exposure. She let them finish. "Communications," she said, "don't spin. Plain words. We failed to protect a passenger's dignity and safety. We are taking corrective action now. Anything less will pour gasoline." A throat cleared on the line. "Understood." "Finance," she added. "You are worried about numbers. Good. Do the math on corporate travel spend that leaves when trust leaves. Then consider the other number, the people in this cabin and the millions outside it who will or will not believe you again after today. We count those." The man in 2C gave a short, disbelieving laugh. She's talking to money like it's a person, he whispered. And it's listening. The ground supervisor arrived at the door, breath quick, eyes cautious. She took in the scene, then addressed the woman in 1A, as if she'd been briefed that titles were less important than tone. "Ma'am, I'm here to assist." "You're here to act," the woman corrected, not unkindly. "Collect the names of every witness who wishes to provide a statement. Offer them the option to be contacted by an independent investigator, not just the airline. Make sure older passengers have help with the forms." She tipped her chin toward row 6. "Start with her." The supervisor nodded and moved immediately to the woman with silver locks. "Ma'am, if you're willing." "I'm willing," she said. "And I'll say it plain." The younger flight attendant returned with a small kit. "Ma'am, would you like the physician called now?" she asked. "He's at the gate." "Yes," the woman said. "Let him come aboard so he can see, not guess." The officer stepped aside as a man in a blazer and an airport badge entered the cabin, a slim case in his hand. He knelt beside 1A and spoke the way good clinicians do, simple, respectful, focused on consent. "May I take a look?" "You may," she said. She did not look away from the captain as the physician examined the cheek. "Document the color, the location, the tenderness," she instructed quietly. "Use plain language. We are not turning pain into poetry." The physician nodded, cheeks pinking. "Understood." From the speaker, the precise voice returned. "We have prepared a public statement for your review." "Not yet," the woman said. "You'll speak after we act, not before." Rachel shifted again, the instinct to interject still flaring. "I did my job," she muttered to herself. But the words had lost their scaffolding. The woman in 1A turned her head at last. "Ms. Mercer," she said, and the softness of the address made it sting more. "If, in the end, you remain with this company, you will remember today as the afternoon you learned what the job actually is." "What is it then?" Rachel shot back, brittle and brave and very small. "To carry people," the woman said, "not just their bags." No one applauded. The sentence didn't ask for it. It just settled into the carpet and stayed there. The captain cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, "I have a responsibility to all aboard. Are you asking me to cancel this flight?" "No," she said. "I am asking you to depart under dignity. You'll board a replacement lead attendant. You'll brief the cabin yourself. You'll make space for the truth. We will take off when the air is clean enough to breathe." The officer's radio chirped. "Replacement lead at the door," came a voice. The young attendant ducked into the galley and returned with a woman in the same uniform as Rachel's, but wearing it differently. Her eyes went first to 1A. "Welcome," the woman said. "What's your name?" "Dana," she replied. "I'm here to get us right. Begin by informing your team they will address passengers with respect and restraint," the woman said. "And you, Dana, will personally ensure Ms. Mercer has the support she is entitled to under your policies while she is removed from this cabin." Dana nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Rachel opened her mouth again, closed it again. She looked at Dana as if asking for rescue. Dana didn't look away from 1A. From row 3, the teenager whispered to her phone, now more archivist than commentator. "This is like watching a storm organize into a shape and then choose to pass without breaking anything it doesn't have to." The board call ticked on. "We have one more concern," a man said. "If regulators become involved, they should," the woman answered. "Invite them. Don't hide from the grown-ups. If our house is in order, we won't fear a visit." The physician finished, packed his case, and spoke plainly. "Contusion on the left cheek, no laceration. Recommend ice, documentation, and follow-up. I'll file my report." "Thank you," she said. "Put your name on it." "I will." The captain looked down the aisle at the rows of faces, then back to 1A. "I'll brief the cabin," he said. "You will," she agreed. And then you and I will speak briefly about something else. His brow tightened, not with resistance, but with preparation. Understood. She lifted her phone from the armrest. The speaker still hissed with waiting breath. Directors, she said. We've stabilized the aircraft. You will receive the first set of actions within the hour. Coordinates for independent oversight will follow. Executive compensation will be tied to outcomes, not announcements. Start building the framework. There was a beat of silence on the line. Then, yes. She ended the call. The click was small and final. Captain, she said, eyes on him now. Before you brief the cabin, confirm the identifier painted on the tail. He blinked, wary of jargon. She made it easy. The number you use to know this plane from the next, she said. He gave it. Simple. Human. No codes. Just the few letters and numbers people listened for when they wanted to know a thing exactly. She nodded. Keep it in your mouth, she told him. You'll need it in a moment. A hush moved through the rows. Passengers felt it without understanding it. Another gear. Another lever about to slide into place. From the galley, Dana spoke softly into her own radio, then looked up. Crew ready, she said. The captain stepped into the aisle, squared his shoulders, and faced the people he was responsible for. He opened his mouth to speak. The woman in 1A lifted a hand, just enough to pause him for a heartbeat, and then she said, not loud, not dramatic, just clear enough to carry. After your briefing, Captain, you'll connect me to the owner's representative for this aircraft. We're going to talk about authority and stewardship, and we're going to say both of those things out loud. He held her gaze. He understood that owner was not some abstract office in a building across town. I'll make the call, he said. The aisle air tightened again, like the cabin had taken one last breath and was holding it. Good, she replied. Then let's begin. Her words hung in the stale cabin air, heavier than any turbulence. The captain turned toward the passengers, straightening his shoulders as if the uniform had suddenly grown tighter. His voice carried, steady but subdued. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, we've had an incident in this cabin. It involved the mistreatment of a seated passenger. It is being documented, addressed, and corrected before we depart. You deserve the truth. This flight will leave only under conditions of dignity and safety. That is my responsibility, and I intend to meet it. Murmurs rose soft, astonished, relieved. Some phones stopped recording only for others to tilt higher, capturing the historic absurdity of a pilot forced into confession before takeoff. The woman in 1A let the moment stretch. Then she lifted her hand. Captain, thank you. Now connect me to the owner's representative for this aircraft. He hesitated, then pulled his radio close, words crisp, measured. A moment later, the cabin filled with the tinny hum of a new voice, calm, male, professional. This is Executive Services. Go ahead. Passengers leaned forward. Even Rachel, pale and silent near the galley, tilted her head. The woman in 1A spoke not as a victim demanding redress, but as someone reclaiming property. Identify the aircraft by tail number, November 735, the voice said. Correct, she replied, and now confirm the registry line. There was a pause, small but seismic. Then, registry, Aegis Holdings Incorporated. Whispers scattered down the aisle, curious, confused. The teenager in row 3 whispered into her phone. Aegis Holdings, that's a major fund. The woman leaned forward, her tone soft but cutting. And state, for the record, the controlling shareholder of Aegis Holdings. The voice hesitated again. Every second of silence swelled until it felt like a drumbeat. Finally, controlling shareholder is recorded as Ms. Evelyn Clark. Phones tilted. Mouths opened. Gasps flew. The name crashed through the cabin like lightning. The woman in 1A had a name now. And not just a name, but a weight that carried billions behind it. Rachel's hand dropped from the galley wall. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible." The man in 2C slapped his thigh. "I knew it. I saw her picture. Forbes cover. Last spring." The teenager nearly shouted to her live feed, "She owns the plane!" Evelyn Clark didn't smile. She didn't need to. She looked across the cabin, at Rachel, at the passengers, at the captain still standing guard in the aisle. "This is not a stunt," she said. "This is structure. This aircraft is my asset. This airline is under my authority, and today, that authority is exercised here." The supervisor who'd been gathering witness statements froze, pen dangling midair. The young flight attendant clasped her tray like a shield. Even the physician still lingering with his medical bag blinked, as if seeing her bruise differently, now less as an injury and more as evidence. Evelyn rose, slow, deliberate. Every eye followed her. She didn't tell her age had curved her spine slightly, softened her gait, but power doesn't need inches. Power needs recognition, and recognition was flooding the cabin like oxygen. She rested her hand on the seat in front of her and spoke, not to Rachel, not to the crew, but to the passengers. "You've been told often, by corporations and their spokespeople, that accountability will come later. Later never arrives. Today, it does. Right here, right now. On this plane." The man in 2C murmured, "Lord have mercy," like a prayer he hadn't planned to give. Rachel tried one last defense, her voice desperate. "I didn't know. Nobody told me who she was. I thought she was just—" "Just?" Evelyn asked, her gaze sharp. "Say it," Rachel faltered. Her throat closed around the word. "Exactly," Evelyn said. "You saw only what you wanted to see. A black woman in a first-class seat, and your imagination stopped there." The passengers went quiet, a silence full of shame and recognition. Evelyn's phone still glowed in her hand. She tapped it once, reconnecting the board call. The directors' voices rustled in the background, waiting. "Directors," she said. "Passengers in this cabin now serve as witnesses to both the incident and the correction. Prepare statements, acknowledging my ownership, the invocation of emergency governance, and the disciplinary actions underway. Draft with clarity. Draft with honesty. Draft knowing I will read every word." The line answered, "Yes, Ms. Clark." Rachel sagged against the galley wall, her face slack, drained of fight. Evelyn Clark didn't look at her again. She looked to the captain. "Now," she said, "we will finish this. Inform your passengers that their journey will continue under a new condition. They are flying not only with your crew, but under my direct oversight. The rules of dignity apply from this moment forward." The captain inclined his head, voice steadier than before. "Understood." The cabin held its breath as Evelyn Clark sat once more in 1A, straightened her scarf, and lifted the water glass to her lips. The ice clicked softly inside, the sound tiny but undeniable. She sipped, then placed the glass back on the tray. "That," she said, "is the order of things." And for the first time since boarding, not a soul on that aircraft doubted who commanded it. And for the first time since boarding, not a soul on that aircraft doubted who commanded it. The captain stood in the aisle like a man who had decided what kind of leader he would be. Dana, the replacement lead attendant, positioned herself beside him, posture straight, eyes level. Rachel had been moved to an empty seat by the galley. A supervisor posted between her and the cabin like a door that would not open again. Evelyn Clark rested one hand lightly on the armrest of 1A. The bruise on her cheek had darkened to a plum shadow, the kind a camera loves for the wrong reasons. She ignored it. She relaxed her shoulders, the way elders do when they sit down at long tables to settle family business. "Captain," she said, "brief your passengers once more. Tell them exactly what is happening and what will happen next." He nodded. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "a replacement lead attendant has boarded. A medical professional has documented the injury to our passenger in 1A. Witness statements are being collected. We will depart when the corrective steps are complete, and when our passenger confirms she is ready to continue." He looked at Evelyn. She held his gaze, then gave a small nod. Truth accepted. The supervisor moved row by row with a clipboard and a quiet word, collecting names from anyone who wished to be contacted by an independent investigator. The woman with silver locks spoke first and signed slowly, letters careful as a hymn. The teenager in row 3 turned off her stream long enough to add her name, then turned it back on with a new calm, the way people do after they decide they're part of the record. Rachel watched it all as if from underwater. "Dana," Evelyn said, "walk your team. No theatrics. Just work." Dana glanced at the galley. "Team. With me." She checked each face, one by one. "We will address passengers respectfully. We will not raise our voices. We will not touch a seated person unless there is clear danger. We will speak plainly. If you are unsure, you will ask." Each sentence clicked into place like a latch. "Understood," the attendants answered. Soft but firm. From somewhere down the aisle, a man muttered, "It's a new day." It wasn't a joke. People nodded. The captain's radio hissed. He listened, then turned back. "Headquarters requests a status call, Ms. Clark." "Not requests," she said gently. "They can listen." She lifted the phone from her tray and spoke without looking at the screen. "Bring the directors back. Keep legal. And operations on. Allow communications to listen, not lead." Voices came alive in the air again, smaller than the room, but unmistakably attentive. "Directors present," someone said. "Good," Evelyn replied. "We will finish the immediate measures now. Then we will address what is larger than this cabin." The physician returned with a single sheet. He summarized in steady language what everyone could see. Bruising along the left cheekbone, no fracture suspected, photographs taken with consent. The injury and location are consistent with an open-handed strike. He looked almost apologetic for saying it out loud. Naming a thing sometimes makes it heavier. Sometimes it makes it bearable. "Thank you, doctor," Evelyn said. "Leave a copy for the captain, and for me. Keep the originals in your files." "Yes, ma'am." The ground supervisor approached, hesitating on her shoulders. "Ma'am, Ms. Mercer has requested union representation before she's escorted off this aircraft. She will have it," Evelyn said, "and she will not be paraded. Bring her belongings. Walk her quietly. Offer water. Offer a seat in the quiet room near the gate. While she waits, someone from your team will read to her, line by line, the policy that prohibits putting hands on a seated passenger. Not as punishment, but as instruction." The supervisor's throat worked. "Understood." Rachel's eyes flicked to Evelyn, then away. Guilt made her cheeks shine. Or maybe it was fear. They looked the same in certain light. Evelyn turned to the captain. "Before she leaves the aircraft, you will speak one sentence to this cabin," she said. "It will be for everyone, including her." "What sentence?" he asked. She thought for a beat, then gave it to him. "Say, no one's dignity is negotiable on this plane. Say it in your voice, not mine." He absorbed it, then nodded once. He would. The teenager in row 3 whispered, "This feels like church and court at the same time." "It's called accountability," the woman with silver locks answered, not unkind. "Some of us have been waiting a long time to hear it spoken like this." Evelyn lifted the phone again, not for a performance, but for business. "Operations," she said, "confirm the identifiers for this aircraft." She had the captain repeat them, so the room would see transparency was a habit, not a trick. "Now confirm the registry owner." They did. "Now confirm the controlling shareholder." They did that too. "Directors," Evelyn said, "prepare to acknowledge that owner authority has been exercised in protection of passenger safety and dignity. We are not creating a spectacle. We are documenting stewardship, documenting Legal repeated, voice careful. Communications, Evelyn continued. You'll prepare a message for passengers system-wide. Not a script for crew, a promise to customers. You will say, in plain words, what our captain is about to say. She let her eyes find him again. You will say it in your voice too, when you are ready. The captain drew himself up, turned to the rows, and let the sentence live. No one's dignity is negotiable on this plane. It was not loud. It did not need to be. People closed their eyes for a second, like they were letting it sink through their skin. The young flight attendant by the galley blinked hard. Yes, sir, she whispered, to no one in particular, maybe to herself. Rachel stood on shaking legs. The supervisor touched her elbow lightly. We'll go now, she said. Not rough. Not tender, just certain. Rachel nodded and followed, not looking left or right. There was no walk of shame. There was a walk of consequence. Those are different. When the galley curtain fell back into place, the cabin exhaled. Not relief. Readiness. Captain, Evelyn said, you will record that Ms. Mercer departed under escort and without incident. You will add that she will have representation and that her case will be reviewed with fairness. We are not building a guillotine. We are building a standard. He wrote it down the way people do when they want to remember exactly. Now, she said, easing back in 1A, we address the system. The voices on the phone settled. This was the part that would outlast the bruise. Directors, she said, you will authorize a third-party channel for passengers and employees to report discriminatory treatment. It will be independent, anonymous, and active within 72 hours. You will also tie executive bonuses to measurable improvement in these outcomes, 10% at minimum. If you protest, do the arithmetic for how fast trust leaves and how expensive it is to buy back. Finance tried to say something about timing. She let him finish. Timing, she repeated. You reroute a national network in 6 hours when snow falls in Denver. Don't tell me you can't reroute behavior when harm falls in row 1. You will do it because people are watching, and you will do it because it is right. Those are not enemies. Understood, came the reply. Not enthusiastic, honest. Evelyn placed the phone on the tray, screen dark, microphone open. She turned to the passengers and spoke as if they were the only board she needed. Some of you will leave this plane and tell your families you saw a woman with money save the day. That will be a smaller story than the one we are actually writing. The point is not a pocketbook. The point is a principle anyone can carry. The man in 2C nodded, eyes wet and embarrassed at being seen. Yes, ma'am. The captain glanced toward the open door. Out on the jet bridge, the world waited. Gate agents peered in and looked away. One of them crossed herself, quick and private. Miss Clark, the captain said, pending your approval, we can close the door after I finish paperwork and after your final instructions. Not yet, she said softly. One more step. She lifted her handbag, the leather creaking the way old things do when they've been used well. From it she drew a thin folder, not thick with numbers, but heavy with weight. She laid it on the tray without opening it, palm resting on the cover as if blessing it. What is that? The teenager breathed. A promise, Evelyn said. And a boundary. Her gaze went past the captain, through the doorway, as if she could see the conference room miles away where other people in suits were waiting to see how far she would go. Directors, she said into the air, quiet and absolute. Prepare to enter into the record. The clause that binds your power to your conduct. The line stirred. Ms. Clark, would you like us to reference section numbers for no numbers yet? She said. We'll speak, like the public is in the room, because they are. She lifted the folder's cover with 2 fingers. The paper inside had only a handful of sentences. She did not read them. Not here. Not yet. Her eyes traveled the cabin instead, finding faces the way pastors find souls. "To everyone on this aircraft," she said, "we are moments away from writing down what should have been obvious all along." The cabin leaned forward as one. Even the air seemed to hush to hear what would be written. Evelyn closed the folder again, palm firm on the cover. "And starting today," she said, voice low enough to make the hair on arms lift, "I give the orders." The captain's hand hovered over the door switch. Dana's radio crackled once and went still. The supervisor paused mid-aisle, pen frozen above a line. Evelyn lifted the folder from the tray. "Bring me the ownership clause," she said. "We'll read it into the air." The folder in Evelyn Clark's hands looked plain enough. No logo, no gold trim, just a worn leather cover and a single clasp. But the air inside the cabin bent around it, as if every passenger knew that whatever was inside was about to change more than the course of one flight. Evelyn unlatched the clasp and opened it. Pages as thin as onion skin shifted under her fingers. She didn't fumble. She didn't rush. She simply read, her voice low but clear, and the words filled the aisle like a current running through copper wire. "This clause," she began, "is not obscure. It is not theoretical. It has been signed, ratified, and sealed. It ties ownership to conduct. It states, in language anyone can understand, that dignity is a condition of service. Break that condition, and ownership has the right to intervene directly." The captain leaned forward, listening with the intensity of a student before an exam. Dana, hands clasped behind her back, mouthed each word as if committing them to memory. The teenager in row 3 stopped streaming, thumb hovering over her phone, eyes wide. Rachel, slumped by the galley, raised her head just enough to hear. Evelyn read on. "If discrimination occurs aboard an aircraft, if harassment is documented, if assault is committed by staff against passenger, the owner may step into operational command until the harm is acknowledged and corrected. That authority is not abstract, it is binding." She lowered the page so the passengers could see her face. "And it has been invoked." Gasps rippled down the rows. The man in 2C muttered almost reverently, "She just put it into the air. It's real. It's law." The physician spoke up, voice solemn. "Ma'am, may I ask, how many times has this clause ever been used?" Evelyn folded the page back into the folder. "Never. Until now." Silence pressed in, thick and holy. The captain adjusted his cap. "Ms. Clark, for clarity, do you wish me to record this invocation in the official flight log?" "Record it," Evelyn said. "And mark the time. 5:42 p.m. Eastern. Flight 229. Cabin witnesses present." His pen scratched across the paper, like a gavel striking wood. A woman in row 6 lifted her voice, shaky but strong. "Ms. Clark, if you hadn't been who you are, if you hadn't had this clause, what would have happened to you?" Evelyn turned her head slowly, letting the question hang. The same thing that happens every day to people without position, without protection. They're dismissed, gaslit, shamed, called difficult, told to leave, maybe recorded as disruptive. That is why this clause exists. And that is why, after today, it will no longer sit in silence. Phones went up again, recording not scandal now, but testimony. Rachel tried once more, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean." Evelyn cut her off with a single glance. Not cruel, not loud, just final. "You meant enough to leave a mark on my face. That meaning will live in this record longer than your excuses ever will." Rachel's eyes dropped. Evelyn closed the folder, set it back on her tray, and folded her hands atop it. "Directors, you've heard the words spoken into the air. This is no longer a closed clause. It is public. From this moment forward, passengers everywhere have a right to know it exists. Draft your statement accordingly." "Understood," came the chorus from the phone, subdued but unshakable. Dana shifted, cleared her throat, then asked what half the passengers were thinking. "Ms. Clark, what happens now?" Evelyn's gaze swept the cabin, face to face, row to row. "Now, we finish this flight. but the next begins under different rules. This company has tolerated shadow and silence too long. Today, light enters the cabin. The teenager whispered into her phone, almost to herself. She's rewriting the manual, while we sit here. The captain stood straighter. He placed his hand on the cabin door switch, awaiting the signal. Evelyn gave a single nod. He closed the door with a thunk that echoed through the fuselage. The kind of sound that announces something final. Evelyn settled back into her seat, smoothed the scarf Rachel had tried to snatch from her, and spoke one last sentence before the engines rumbled to life. The clause is read. The power is exercised. Now, let them carry us forward. And as the plane began to taxi, every passenger aboard knew they were not simply headed to their destination. They were flying inside a story that would be told again and again, long after the bruise had faded from Evelyn Clark's face. And as the plane began to taxi, every passenger aboard knew they were not simply headed to their destination. They were flying inside a story that would be told again and again, long after the bruise had faded from Evelyn Clark's face. The engines hummed low. The aisle lights glowed like a path. Dana stood just behind the captain, steady as a lamppost. The ground crew on the jet bridge vanished from view. The door was sealed. The world outside fell away until there was only this narrow room in the sky and the work to be done inside it. Evelyn lifted the phone again, not for spectacle, for orders. "Directors," she said, "we will start with 3 actions before wheels leave the ground. First, a message to all staff. Not legal varnish. Plain speech. Hands off passengers. Voices down. Dignity first. Any doubt, call a supervisor before you act. Send it to every handheld and read it in every briefing today. Copy. Operations answered. Already typing it into reality. Second, open the reporting line." Evelyn continued. "Independent. Anonymous. Live now. Announce it to this cabin before we take off. Announce it to every cabin today. People can tell the truth without fear, or we are not a company. We are a costume." "Understood," Legal said, voice tight with urgency. Third, until further notice, no removal of a seated passenger without a supervisor present and a record of the reason. No euphemisms. If it is bias, name it. If it is safety, show it. If it is confusion, slow down. Policy updated, the precise voice replied, pushing system-wide. The captain watched her, eyes narrowed, something like relief hovering at the edges. "An order that cleaned the air is a gift to anyone who breathes for a living." Evelyn turned to him. "Captain, speak to this cabin. Tell them the line is live. Tell them they may use it from their seats with our blessing." He nodded, pressed the intercom, and his voice filled the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, a company-wide reporting line for unfair treatment is now active. If you experienced or witnessed bias in any part of your journey, you may report it now from your seat. If you prefer to speak later, you will receive instructions when we arrive. No names are required. No retaliation will be tolerated. That is the policy." A shiver moved through the rows, the kind that runs on memory. The woman with silver locks crossed herself, then opened her eyes bright. The teenager in row 3 held her phone like a time capsule she wanted to fill carefully. From the other end of the line, communications tried to edge in. "Ms. Clark, for the public statement." "Not yet," Evelyn said. "Listen first, then speak." Dana raised a hand, asking without words if she might step forward. Evelyn nodded. "Crew," Dana said, turning to her team. "We're doing a cabin walk. We will check on every passenger. We will say, 'Do you need water? Do you need calm? Do you need time?' Use those words. Then, listen." They moved together, a line of navy suits and careful hands, and the cabin softened molecule by molecule. The physician remained near 1A with his bag, present, but not hovering. He had done his work. Now he watched the system do its own. Evelyn's phone buzzed again. She answered. No theatrics, just facts. Yes, we're rolling. No, we haven't lifted yet. You will feel the difference before we land. The directors' voices slid back in. Finances confirm. Operations confirm. Legal confirms the line is active. Communications, Evelyn said. Draft the message for passengers across the network. It will be one paragraph. You will say, we harmed a passenger today. We are correcting in public. If you have been harmed, tell us on the line now, open to you. Our crews are instructed to slow down and show care. Your dignity is not negotiable. Then you can sign your name. Silence on the line. Then a quiet, yes. The captain tilted his head, listening to the tower. His hand moved to the throttle and paused, waiting for her nod. She didn't give it yet. Ground, he said into his mic. Flight 229 ready. Stand by, came the reply. You could almost hear the ground crew peering up at a metal skin that suddenly carried new rules inside it. The supervisor returned from the galley with careful steps. Ms. Clark, Ms. Mercer, has been escorted to the quiet room by the gate. She has water. Union representation is en route. I read her the policy. She listened. Good, Evelyn said. Send her this, too. She breathed once, then spoke the sentence as if laying a clean cloth over a table. She is a human being who failed. We will teach before we serve. If she cannot learn, we will let her go cleanly. That is the order. I'll deliver it, the supervisor said, voice unsteady with gratitude for clear lines. The man in 2C turned in his seat, not for show, for witness. Miss Clark, he said softly, I've been on a lot of planes. I've never heard anyone tell the truth like this. That is because truth costs more than spin, Evelyn answered. We can afford it. A rustle behind the sound of someone gathering courage. The teenage girl in row 3 lifted her hand like a student. Miss Clark, I uploaded the video. I don't want it to hurt the wrong people. I just want it to help. It already is, Evelyn said. Keep it. Don't let anyone make you delete it. If someone asks, you say, this is the record. And when you land, you send a copy to the line we opened. Let the truth sit in 2 places. The girl blinked hard, relief making her older. Yes, ma'am, Dana returned with a small nod. Cabin checked. People are calm. A few want to submit reports now. We're helping them. Good, Evelyn said. Make sure the older passengers have hands to steady them while they type. The youngest can show them if they ask. The captain's radio crackled again. Tower clears 229 for departure. He looked at Evelyn. She gave the smallest tilt of her chin. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain said over the intercom, we are cleared to take off. Our team will continue to collect reports and care for you during the climb. You may hear a few extra announcements today. They will be honest. The plane turned, aligned with the runway, and paused like a lungful at the top of a breath. Evelyn raised the phone one last time before the roll. Directors, she said, you will send me by nightfall a 1-page plan, no graphics, no slogans, that sets the next 72 hours in order. Bias training for every customer-facing role. Real supervisors on call at every hub, not just a number on a wall. A promise to publish our progress quarterly. And one more line. Executive bonuses tied to dignity outcomes. 10% today. We can raise it later. There was a murmur. A man tried to warn about precedent. Then let it be a precedent, she said. So even a nervous microphone couldn't smooth it out. We are not punishing. We are aligning. If dignity goes up, money follows. That is not a sermon. It is arithmetic. Dana braced herself in the jump seat. The captain pushed the throttles forward. Engines rose to a clean, layered roar. The cabin pressed back into its seats as the runway blurred beneath them, white lines stitching into a single ribbon of speed. As they lifted, a cheer tried to rise and thought better of it. What came instead was a long exhale and a few quiet amens. Cloud light washed through the windows. The bruise on Evelyn's cheek sat there, undisguised, a small dark moon under her eye. She didn't touch it. She watched the climb, steady and unromantic, like a woman who had lived long enough to know that altitude isn't magic, it's maintenance. At 10,000 feet, the captain dinged the cabin and spoke once more. The reporting line is active. If you need help using it, press your call button. Our crew will assist you. We thank you for your patience and for holding us to a standard worthy of your trust. Evelyn closed her eyes for the first time since the slap. Not to rest, to listen. The cabin had a new sound now. The quiet click of call buttons, the soft murmur of attendants kneeling to hear, the muted relief of people being believed in real time. Her phone vibrated again. She answered, short and plain. Yes. I've heard the first draft of your statement. It's good. Take out the adjectives. Keep the verbs. Send it. She hung up and looked at the captain. He met her eyes and, unbidden, gave the sentence back to her, this time without a microphone. No one's dignity is negotiable on this plane. On any plane, Evelyn said. And in any room where we do business. He nodded. Copy that. The sky opened like a road. Dana moved down the aisle with water and a voice that calmed edges. The physician slid his bag beneath the seat, satisfied to just be another set of eyes. The woman with silver locks closed her hands around the clipboard and began to write down every detail she remembered in the careful handwriting of someone who had waited decades to be asked. In the headset miles below, a communications manager pressed send on a company-wide message that didn't flinch. In a conference room across town, executives stared at a one-page plan that didn't hide behind slogans. In a union office, a representative circled a meeting time that would begin with instruction instead of denial. Dominoes didn't fall. They stood up straighter. Evelyn placed the folder back in her bag and rested her palm on the leather as if checking for a pulse. This is the first correction, she said quietly, to the engine hum and the open sky. Not the last. And the system, for once, answered like a choir. Yes. The system had answered like a choir. Yes. But beneath the clouds, the world was already stirring. Evelyn's phone lit again before descent. Dana glanced at the glowing screen, then at her. The subject line visible even in that brief flash was enough. Media requests. Urgent. Evelyn didn't flinch. She let the phone rest on her lap, screen dimming, as the captain announced their initial descent. The cabin gave a ripple of motion, seatbacks rising, trays clicking shut, bodies shifting to brace for arrival. But beneath the simple choreography, there was a buzz like static. Every passenger knew they were about to land not just in a city, but in a storm. The engine softened, nose tilting downward. Out the window, evening light washed the horizon in gold. Evelyn reached for her scarf, adjusting it once, the bruise still visible under her eye. She didn't cover it. She wouldn't. The captain clicked the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into New York. The weather is calm and the skies are clear. Expect a smooth landing. He paused, then added a line no script had ever given him before. And for those who bore witness today, know that your presence mattered. A murmur rose, low and grateful. Rachel was gone from the cabin, escorted off hours earlier. But her absence was a presence in itself. A hollow shape of passengers filled with whispers and speculation. Dana moved quietly among them, checking belts, offering a hand here, a nod there. But the hum of the outside world kept growing, leaking into the cabin through vibrating phones and glowing screens. The teenager in row 3 gasped, holding her phone aloft. It's everywhere, she whispered. The clip. It's already on the news. Screens lit up down the rows, passengers scrolling, watching. And there it was, grainy footage of Rachel's hand snapping against Evelyn's face, the stunned hush, the captain's voice trembling as he confirmed the truth. 1,000 angles, 1,000 captions, but all of them boiling down to one headline. pulsing across every feed. Billionaire. Slapped on her own plane. The woman with silver locks in row 6 muttered, half to herself, half to anyone who cared to listen. They will try to spin it. They will try to shrink it. Evelyn heard her. Let them try, she said. Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried through the cabin like steel under silk. We've already spoken the record into existence. They're too late. The wheels lowered with a hum. The cabin rattled gently, trays shivering in their slots. A man in 2C turned to Evelyn, eyes sharp. Ms. Clark, when you step off this plane, there will be cameras. How do you want us to stand? She studied him. Stand as you are. Ordinary passengers. Witnesses who saw an ordinary truth. That truth does not need choreography. The ground rushed closer. The engines shifted pitch. Then, a thud, a bounce, and the long roll of tires, kissing the runway. Phones buzzed in unison. Push notifications arrived faster than breathing. Some read, Airline CEO confronts crew abuse. Others, Evelyn Clark claims operational authority mid-flight. A few went blunt. Slap heard around the skies. The captain taxied toward the gate, jaw tight, radio murmuring. He turned once to Evelyn, silently asking if she was ready. She gave the smallest nod. The seatbelt light chimed, but no one moved. Not a bag unlatched, not a belt unclasped. They were waiting, all of them, for her. The jet bridge thudded against the fuselage. The door opened, and in its frame stood not a flight attendant, but a wall of microphones, lenses, and eyes. Reporters had swarmed the gate, security too. Dana stepped into the aisle, but Evelyn lifted a hand. Stay, she said. Then she rose, slow but unbending, her frame small against the cabin ceiling, yet filling it all the same. She walked to the threshold, bruise catching the gate light, scarf steady at her throat. The microphones shot forward like arrows. Questions shouted, words jumbled. Miss Clark, will the crew be fired? Miss Clark, do you own this airline? Ms. Clark, was this planned? Miss Clark, what message do you have for passengers of color? She lifted her hand, and somehow the noise ebbed, reporters straining for the quiet. Her words came clear, measured, and unornamented. Today, a woman raised her hand against me because she could not see past the color of my skin. That bruise will fade, but the structure that allowed her to think she could do it will not fade unless we tear it open. That work has already begun. On this plane, with these witnesses, and now with you. Gasps, clicks, pens scratching, cameras flashing. I am not here for spectacle, she continued. I am here to tell you that this airline will not run as it did yesterday. If you want to know how it runs tomorrow, you may read the clause yourselves. It has been published. Transparency is not a gift. It is a demand you have earned. One reporter shouted over the crowd, desperate. Ms. Clark, are you afraid of backlash? Her eyes found him, and her answer cut through the air. Afraid? No. Backlash is simply proof that the door has been kicked open, and I do not intend to close it. Behind her, the passengers began to disembark, one by one, carrying their bags, their phones, their stories. Some whispered thank you as they passed. Some clasped her hand. Some simply looked into her eyes and nodded. Evelyn stepped down last, walking into the storm of cameras, not shielding the bruise, but offering it like a seal. The world roared around her, but she walked steady, each step landing like punctuation in a sentence she had written herself. And as she moved through the flood of voices, it became clear to all watching. The landing had not ended the story. It had only widened it. The landing had widened the story. It did not end it. Evelyn did not follow the cameras down the concourse. She stepped 3 doors off the gate into a plain conference room with coffee stains on the carpet and a window that looked out on nothing but a blank wall. Dana slipped in behind her, the captain a respectful pace back, the ground supervisor with a notebook, and the woman with silver locks who'd asked to be a witness. The teenager hovered at the door, unsure if she belonged, until Evelyn crooked a finger and made it clear she did. Someone had dragged in a cart with a small speaker and 2 glass pitchers. The world outside sounded like rain, though the sky was dry. Reporters called her name. Phones vibrated. The room held. "Leave the door ajar," Evelyn said. "Let truth hear us working." Dana set the pitchers down. The captain stood near the wall like he was guarding the room against turbulence. The supervisor opened her notebook to a blank page, her pen already moving. Evelyn took the end of the table, not the head. "Read me the first wave," she said. The supervisor swallowed and began. "Regional news stations are airing the clip. National desks have it queued. Editorials already drafting. Our internal line is receiving reports. One from a baggage claim confrontation last week. One from a boarding dispute in Dallas. One from a check-in counter in Charlotte. People are sending documentation. Many of them are older. Many of them are thanking you." The woman with silver locks lifted her chin. "They're thanking themselves," she said softly. "You just gave them a door to walk through." The teenager read from her phone, voice careful. "A city bus company posted a statement. They say they're borrowing our language. Hands off, voices down, dignity first. They're starting their own reporting line." Dana's breath caught. "Already?" "Already," the girl said. The head of their drivers' union added a line. "You can ask a question without raising a hand." The captain looked down at his own hands, suddenly aware of how they had learned to move. He let them rest on the chair back, open. The speaker on the cart crackled. Communications, patched in from headquarters, kept it short for once. The passenger message went out. It said exactly what you told us to say. "Our inbox is full. Some angry, most relieved. Next," Evelyn said. "Hospital." The supervisor read, surprised by the word as it left her mouth. "A chief nurse at a downtown emergency department just called. She watched a clip of the captain saying no one's dignity was negotiable. She wants to print it on posters for her intake room. Can she?" "She can," Evelyn said. "And we'll send her better materials by morning. Not posters, training that breathes." Dana's eyes shone. "That's bigger than planes." "It was always bigger than planes," Evelyn replied. "Planes are just where you can't look away." The teenager lifted her phone again. "A rideshare company says they will require a supervisor call before any driver reports a rider for suspicious behavior. They're quoting our line about slowing down." The woman with silver locks gave a long, quiet laugh that wasn't joy so much as recognition. "Slowing down? They finally learned the thing our grandmothers told us. Count to 10 before you act wrong," the captain's radio murmured. Headquarters wanted a quick debrief with him alone. He shook his head once and stayed. His place was here until the door closed. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She did not pick it up. "Read me voices, not spectacles," she said. The supervisor obliged. A kindergarten teacher wrote. She says she watched on her break, cried in the supply closet, then printed your sentence about dignity and taped it above the cubbies. She says, if they're old enough to fly, they're old enough for the rule. Dana put a hand over her mouth. The room sighed like a chorus of pews settling. "Another," the supervisor said, flipping pages. "A pastor. He says, we will be preaching this on Sunday because our people stand at too many gates. He asked for permission to repeat your words." "Give it," Evelyn said. "No permission needed for the truth." The teenager cleared her throat, shy but steady. A woman from Detroit recorded a voice message. She's 80. She said she flew alone in the 60s for a funeral and was told her pocketbook was too loud for first class. She still hears that sentence when she packs a bag. She says, "Hearing your voice today made it fall quiet." The room held its breath. Evelyn closed her eyes for a beat. When she opened them, they were dry and bright. "Send her our number," she said. I want to hear it from her mouth, not through a speaker. The captain finally spoke. Ma'am, the union has asked for a statement for their members. He waited, like a man at a crossroads who wanted directions more than orders. Tell them the same thing I told the passenger line, Evelyn said. No one is building a guillotine. We are building a standard. We will teach before we sever. We will discipline without spectacle. And when someone learns, we will say so out loud. That is leadership, not theater. The supervisor's pen moved faster. Got it. The speaker crackled again, this time with the precise voice from legal. Regulators are listening. They're not threatening. They're curious. Invite them, Evelyn said. Don't perform for them. Show them what we wrote down and how it works. If there's a better version, we'll take it. Copy. The teenager, apologetic, lifted her phone a little higher. Another one, Ms. Clark. A hotel chain. They're adapting the rule for check-in counters. If there is doubt, slow down. If there is bias, name it. They're quoting you. They promise to publish their quarterly numbers. Good, Evelyn said. They should publish even when the numbers embarrass them. That's when numbers are useful. A small knock sounded at the door, polite as a deacon. The physician eased in with a paper folder. Apologies. Signed copies of the report. Photographs on a drive with a label. If you would like a second opinion when you get home, I have colleagues I trust. Leave it, Evelyn said. You did your job. He hesitated, then added in a voice that sounded like he was speaking for more than himself. And I will be teaching my team tomorrow that documentation is not cruelty. It is care. Go do it, she said. He did. The woman with silver locks had not sat. She stood near the table like a witness at a hearing, hands folded around her bag. Miss Clark, she said, if they ask me tonight what I saw, I won't just say a slap. I'll say I saw a room remember its manners. You saw a room find its backbone, Evelyn replied. Manners are nothing without that. Outside, the echo of cameras had thinned to a murmur. The storm was moving down the concourse toward another story. That was fine. The work here didn't require thunder. The supervisor checked her watch. Your statement is scheduled for the top of the hour. Then we will keep it short, Evelyn said. Short enough to fit in a pocket. Long enough to leave no wriggle room. She turned to the teenager. You will stand beside me when I speak. The girl blinked. Me? You carried the first record, Evelyn said. Stand where it started. She turned to the woman with silver locks. And you. You will stand at the other side, because you carried the oldest story in the room. The woman smiled, fierce and proud. I can do that. Dana adjusted the microphone at the cart. Her hands sure now. The captain checked the hallway. The supervisor held the one-page statement Evelyn had demanded earlier verbs without adjectives. Read it, Evelyn said. The supervisor read, We harmed a passenger today. We are correcting in public. If you have been harmed, tell us on the line now, open to you. Our crews are instructed to slow down and show care. Your dignity is not negotiable. That, Evelyn said, is the gospel of travel. The only one worth reciting. The captain startled at the word gospel and then smiled at how right it was. The speaker clicked again operations, this time, breathless with the speed of it. A regional airline just called. They want a copy of our training. They say, we're small, but we're listening. Send it, Evelyn said. Take our name off. Let it be theirs. Done. Another ping. A civic group is organizing a clinic at the community center near the airport. They want to help older travelers file reports and learn their rights. They've asked if someone from our team will sit with them. I will, the supervisor said before she could stop herself. You will, Evelyn agreed. Take Dana if she can spare the hour. Bring coffee. Bring patience. The teenager tucked her phone away and stood up straighter. Ms. Clark, when they ask what changed anything today, what should I say? Say that people saw their own reflection. and didn't look away. Evelyn answered. Say a sentence got said out loud that no one could wiggle out of. Say that an old woman with a bruise and a younger woman with a phone stood at the same table and called it by its name. The ground outside moaned with the shift of a tractor, the kind of airport noise no one hears after their first flight. Inside, the room felt like the eye of a storm that had decided to stay. Evelyn finally picked up her phone and glanced at the screen. A message from a name she'd known for 40 years waited there. An old friend from church who had taught her how to pass the peace without letting go of the fight. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She already knew the gist. Proud of you. Keep going. She set the phone down and looked at the door. Bring them in, she said. Dana opened it wider. Reporters flowed in, not a mob now, but an audience. Lights softened. Pens readied. The captain took his place by the wall. The supervisor lifted the statement. The teenager stood on Evelyn's right. The woman with silver locks stood on her left, hand steady on her purse like it contained the minutes of a long meeting called history. Evelyn spoke without notes. You want to know what happens next, she said. This is what happens next. The line is open. The training begins. The numbers will be published. Executive pay will rise and fall with how we treat you. Other companies are already calling. They can borrow every word. We have no interest in owning good manners. A reporter asked, How will you measure success when the quiet rooms near our gates are empty? Evelyn said, When older women do not rehearse explanations in their heads before they board, when the sentence our captain spoke today sounds ordinary, that is the day we will have done our job. She nodded once. The supervisor read the one page. It took less than a minute. The room didn't applaud. It didn't need to. The microphones lowered. Reporters drifted back into the concourse. The teenager's shoulders dropped, shock turning to something like pride. The woman with silver locks squeezed Evelyn's hand once and let go, like passing a baton back and forth across time. Outside, announcements resumed their patient litany. Inside, no one felt patient. They felt ready. Next call, Evelyn said, and the room moved as one body, the ripple traveling outward, where it belonged. The conference room had emptied, its walls still humming with what had been spoken inside. Dana lingered by the door. The captain had returned to his crew. The supervisor carried her notebook like scripture to transcribe later. Evelyn sat alone now, scarf folded neatly on the table beside the untouched pitcher of water. The noise from the terminal beyond was distant, almost like the sea. She allowed herself one long breath, the kind that wasn't for show, the kind she had held back since the slap. Her face still ached, though less from the sting and more from the weight of carrying the bruise in public. But she hadn't covered it. She wouldn't. Her phone buzzed again. Not with news alerts this time, but with private messages. Friends, strangers, names she hadn't seen in decades. Some were long, some only 3 words. I saw you. She read them. Not all the way through, but enough. Enough to feel the ripple had already reached far beyond airports, beyond terminals, into kitchens, buses, schools, barber shops, and sanctuaries. Enough to know she had done what she came to do. Dana slipped back in, hesitant. The car is ready. Evelyn looked up. And the cameras? They're waiting out front. You don't have to face them again tonight. Evelyn shook her head. No. If they waited, then so will I. She rose, her joints stiff but steady. The scarf went back around her neck. Soft armor. Together, they walked down the narrow corridor. The teenager who had filmed it all stood by the security door, still holding her phone like a lifeline. She looked at Evelyn, wide-eyed. Ma'am, it's already at 10 million views. Evelyn touched her shoulder lightly. Views fade. Truth stays. Don't measure worth by the numbers. The girl nodded, though she looked like she wanted to cry. Outside, the night air hit cool against Evelyn's skin. The terminal lights burned white, and the crowd still lingered, though smaller now, like coals after fire. Reporters adjusted their mics, cameras blinked awake, voices rose. She didn't step to the podium they had dragged out. She stood on the concrete instead, at eye level, no higher than anyone else. She lifted a hand, and the voices quieted. "This is my last word tonight," she said. "You've asked if I'm angry. I am. You've asked if I'm afraid. I am not. You've asked if this ends here. It does not. Because what happened to me is not rare. It is not unique. It is daily bread for too many. And if I, with every title and every dollar, can be struck and dismissed in plain view, then what do you think happens to those without shield or spotlight?" The silence was heavy. No one dared shuffle. She went on, "This is not just about an airline. This is not just about me. It is about the condition of dignity. We cannot negotiate it. We cannot delay it. From now on, those who carry us, whether in the air, on the road, through the door of a hospital, across a counter, must understand that they carry our dignity too. They mishandle it. They answer for it." Her gaze moved across the faces, young and old, white and brown, lenses and notebooks. "I told you the clause was binding. Now hear me when I say, the clause is alive. It belongs to more than contracts. It belongs to you. Speak it when you are wronged. Demand it when you are silenced. Teach it to those who think you will never speak." For a moment, the air stilled. Then someone in the back said, clear and low, "Your dignity is not negotiable." Others repeated it, first scattered, then in unison, until the words rolled across the terminal like a tide. Evelyn bowed her head once, not in humility, but in acknowledgement. The crowd had taken the words. That was the point. Dana whispered, "Car's waiting." Evelyn turned toward it, walking slow, not chased, not hurried. Each step pressed into the concrete, like it was leaving print deeper than dust. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, but she didn't stop again. She had said what she came to say. The door of the black car closed behind her with a quiet thud. The engine purred. The lights of the terminal blurred in the tinted glass as the driver pulled away. Inside the cabin, Evelyn finally let her head rest against the seat. The city glowed in the distance, restless and alive. She closed her eyes. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to be still. And though the bruise remained, the story was no longer hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had watched, listened, and spoken it forward. That was the last word. Thank you for staying with me through this entire story. It wasn't just about a slap or a single flight. It was about the truth so many of us know too well. Dignity isn't negotiable, and no matter how much power or wealth a woman has, there are still rooms where people believe they can strip it away. But tonight, you and I both know that power doesn't always come with titles or uniforms. Sometimes it shows up in the quiet strength of an older woman, refusing to bow her head. I believe this story carries a message for all of us. We don't have to accept disrespect as normal. We don't have to sit quietly while others decide our worth. And when we stand together, whether in an airport, a classroom, or our own homes, change becomes unstoppable. If this story touched you, if it stirred memories or gave you strength, I invite you to be part of this community. Leave a comment and share what you felt. Hit like if you believe in the message. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel so we can keep lifting up stories that remind us of who we are and what we deserve.